Hey everybody, Thomas Vanderkin here. Something a little different. Let's talk a little bit about how to remove carpeting and install luxury vinyl plank. Okay, so this is going to be a video series, actually one long video probably, but I'll splice it together and show you guys how to remove carpeting. So I'm going to, first things first, take everything out. And then after that, I will remove the carpeting, fix the floors, remove the trim boards, baseboards, and then put it all back together. So we'll do that in video. I'll put a quick video of the finished product, quick shot of the video, finished product, and we'll walk through how I got there after that. So look for the next thing. First things first, get everything out. Well, here it is. This is the final product. We're super proud of it. You can see the primary objective was to get the carpeting out and put in this new vinyl plank flooring, which is done. We reupholstered the chair, which my wife finished. This beautiful stenciling on the wall, crown molding up in the ceiling, and all the trim painted and the walls painted, and a new ceiling fan installed also. So now let's take the journey on how we got here. We'll walk through removing the carpeting, we'll take off all the floorboards, we'll put in crown molding, we'll paint everything, we'll put in new vinyl plank flooring. My wife painted the bed, and we'll see how we got here. Okay. Hopefully I just showed you a video of an amazing finished product and how great this looked, but now we're back to actually figuring out how we got there. So what we need to do, the goal is to paint the walls, get them the right color to match the rest of the design for the room. We need to do something a little bit interesting here. I don't know, this is totally normal, but we're going to remove all the baseboards. So the reason we're going to do that is because we want to get the baseboards down tight against the wood floor. So we're going to remove all the carpeting, which is about 22 years old at this point. And then we're going to remove the baseboards. Then we're going to fix where the baseboards attach to the walls. We'll have to get all the caulk off. After we get that fixed, we're going to put some joint compound in there, sand that down, paint the walls while everything's still out, and don't have to worry about the floor. Then we're going to start installing the luxury vinyl flooring, and then we're going to put the baseboards back on and recaulk the floor, and we should be good to go. So next step is let's get the carpeting out. So let's try that. Okay, well, next step is removing the carpeting. Not too much drama here. One of the key requirements is a sharp knife, so I'm going to give you a quick, I had to change the blade here. I'm going to show you how to do that quick. Hopefully everybody knows how to do it, but I'll give you a quick demo, and then we'll get to removing the carpeting. So let's do a quick knife sharpening. This is a very simple process. Open this up. Hopefully, all of you have a utility knife already. Take the screw out. There's a blade in here. It's got two sharp sides, but you want to have it super sharp to start this, because you're going to be cutting through carpeting, which is a little bit tricky. Just flip that around, hook it back together, put the screw in, and we'll be good to go. Then we'll give you a demo of how easy it is to get the carpeting out of your room if you've never done it. So let's try this. First thing, you just want to get a corner. So I just use the pliers like this, go down, grab some carpeting with the pliers, pull it out, here comes the carpeting. So I have no idea how you'd ever get it back in, so this is kind of a out only. I've never put carpeting in. But then once you get it out, it's going to be super heavy. The people who put it in are a lot stronger than I am. So then you just want to cut it from the back. I usually would get a lot more out before I cut it, but just to show you how this works, let's cut the knife in the back, push it in, cut it. You can see how easy it is to cut the carpeting. So as you remove it, just keep cutting it and pulling it out from the edge. Go all the way around, get it all out. So let me finish that up and I'll show you how easy it is to remove the carpeting pad. Okay, one more run at the carpeting just so you guys can see how this works. Pulling it out. You can see there's the pad under here, the tack strip. We're going to take those out in a second, but just flip this over. Again, it's too big, so cut from the edge. Go all the way down in here. Ooh, let's get some more pulled back. Cut it into a piece here like this. See, it's pretty straightforward. Then I'll just roll it up and take it up to the garage. Okay, carpet's gone, room's clear of carpet, took it all to the garage. Next step is removing the floor pad. Super simple, just rip it out. So, give you a quick demo of this. Just grab it, start pulling it out. Floor pad could not be easier to remove, so I'm just gonna go ahead, rip all this out, and I'll show you the next step, which is removing the tacks along the edge, which is a little bit trickier. Okay, that couldn't have been easier. Literally took 5 minutes to get the floor pad, carpet pad out, but one of the problems is it left a ton of little staples. So if you can see, all everywhere you look, staple that held that carpet pad in. So we're gonna have to do a lot of work in a minute to get all those staples out. Simplest way I know is a needle nose pliers. But next step is going to be remove the tacky strip that holds the carpet on the corners. I did find a little bit of a trick for that, so let me go get the right tools and I'll show you how that works. Okay, you're going to see that having the right tools is going to make all the difference. So one of the tools that I'm serious about is safety. So this is time for ear protection. Later on, we're definitely going to have some eye protection. So let me show you how I remove these tack strips. So I have this thing called a Wonder Bar. I guess you could just use the back of a hammer, but this is really works pretty slick. It's great for this. So let me try to do this. It's going to be a little loud, I guess, but you just got to get under the edge here, start prying it off. There's nails all the way along it. Coming up like this. Maybe you can't see that. Turn the camera a little bit. I'm just going along here. Make sure I'm in the view yet. These things are spiky, man. You hit those things with your finger and you will, it's gonna sting. Yeah, but like that. But there's nails on the back, so you just gotta go along, keep popping these nails out, get all these strips up all the way around the edge. So I'm gonna do that and then I'll come back. All right, guys, so here's where it gets strange. So usually when you put in wood vinyl floors like this, there's a sample of it, you would just start at the edge, put it under here, work it across, and you wouldn't have to remove this. Or you put it close enough and then you come around later and you add quarter round all the way around on the outside to make it nice and tight. Well, we didn't want cord around, and we wanted it to look perfect. We thought about just tucking it under here and then filling this gap with caulk. Let me show you the gap. So you can see there's a, oops. See there's a gap right here. You just couldn't leave it. It's too much dust and everything would have went underneath there. So, well, we didn't want to caulk it. We didn't want to put cord around on there. We don't like the look of that. So what we came up with is actually just removing all of this baseboard and then pushing it down tight and then reattaching it so it's nice and tight with no caulk around there. So the next step we're going to do is go ahead and remove this baseboard. I'll show you how we do this. I'll show you what not to do. So I tried doing it with the carpet still installed, and the carpet clearly holds it on, and I tore this all up and had to go buy a new piece of baseboard to replace this, and I'm going to have to fix the wall. So you definitely don't want to remove the baseboard before you remove the wall. So what you do is take your knife, take your razor blade. All the house has caulk along here, holding it. It fills the gaps, fills a little gap. We're going to have to add caulk again when we reinstall it. But so we've got to cut the caulk line first. So we're going to do that. There's a caulk line here. Hopefully you can see that. There's a caulk line between the baseboards up here. And then of course it's going to go this way too. We'll come back to that one. But let me finish cutting this one all the way along. Got to cut it pretty deep. It's not even going to be deep enough and you're going to see the problem, but you're going to see how this works here in a second. Let me finish. Okay, so once you cut that, you got to get this baseboard off. Not really a good way to get to it, so I'm going to use a tool that we actually bought for later in the project and try and get underneath here. I'll be right back. Okay, lift this up a little bit. Okay, so this is a puller. So you're going to use this, we're going to use this a lot when we're installing the flooring. Basically, you add this on the end, hit this with a hammer, and it's going to tighten all these luxury vinyl planks together later. But I've also found that the gap on here works really well to get under these baseboards. So what I can try to do, get under here, and then just kind of pull on this baseboard. And there's little brads every 16 inches that hold these in. They're really long, but they have no head on them. So if you do it right, you can pull it off and the head just pulls through and it should stay in there. So let me try and get one of these out. Corners are tricky. They can be done in one of several ways. Either they cut them at an angle or they do one straight and then they carve out the other one. So let's see what's going on in this. You're always right on the edge of disaster when you're doing this, so it might be the other side that has to come out first. Just gotta play around with this to find out. So let me try to cut the caulk here. Try to pull this one out. God. Super scary because there's really no way to get at it. Let me try the other end first. We'll go with this one. We're learning this together, right? So let's see if I can get this corner started since I have a better, maybe a better angle. So once you get started, it's not too bad. You can kind of work at your angle. I know this one's going to be straight, so it should pull out straight. Let's try this. So cut this down like this. Again, here I'm just cutting the caulk that's acting as a glue to hold the edge on. Cut the caulk here. So now you can tell just by looking at it, this is going to be straight side, so hopefully I can just pull this out. I can feel the nails loosening out and pulling up on the bottom, but I'm not getting to the nail on the top yet, so. Oh. I broke it. It just wouldn't loosen up on the top here, so I'm going to have to replace this board. But I do have a little gap here. So let me see, since I got to replace this anyway. So home remodel is not for the faint of heart. I do have a little gap, so I'm going to use my weather bar. In there. And see, now it's pulling apart. If I can get this off. I'm going to have to fix all these walls anyway. I'm going to have to repair all these boards anyway, so. There. Okay, so now it's loose. Now I can work my way down and start installing it. So, not the most inspirational, but actually probably very real project here, trying to get these baseboards off. So, I'll do that next. I'm just going to keep going around, cutting all the caulk and pulling the baseboards out. Okay, I got it out. I just want to show you one thing. So I am, as I go around, marking these with a little pen. So I'll just make this one a 1, and I'll put a 1 here. This room's a little small. I did a bigger room, and there's a lot of pieces of molding. It would have got confusing, but I'll just go all the way around in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, kind of as I make my way around, and then I'll be able to match it up to the wall here later. As I paint, and the one may get covered, but at least I'll know what the order is as I go around. Second thing is, there's all these little nail brads left at the bottom here. So I'm going to have to use my big pliers, and I'll just hook them on here, and then just hold it tight, and then pull it back. It'll kind of lever, and it'll just pull those right out the back. You can't even see them from the front. I'm also going to take all those out as I go around, take them out of the wall as I go around, ones that got left in the wall. And then the big project's going to be taking the caulk off the top up here and off of the wall, but I'll get to that in a second. So I just wanted to show you the fact that I'm labeling these, and I'm going to have to remove these brads from here, but I'll be back. Okay, I'm going to show you this just because it's sometimes on YouTube you don't get the real deal, but getting this stuff out of the corner is tricky. So first of all, you got to be super careful when you're going along the wall, pulling this out. You're right on the edge of breaking the drywall all the time. So you don't want to push so hard on here or use a crowbar or anything that's going to break the drywall, because then you got to try and fix it. But now I'm in the corner, and they always put a nail right into the corner to hold it on, or a little brad. So it's tricky to get it out. So I'm going to do this so you guys can see. So I got it loose. Try to bend. I don't want to break the corner of the baseboard. If I just bend it up at an angle, it's going to snap this little corner right here, which I don't want to do. So I'm trying to get it out and then just pull if I can. There. Usually I fall down, but just giving you a hint on how tricky it is to get these boards out. But it's going. We're rocking and rolling. We've got most of the room done. Check back in a second. Okay, all the baseboards are removed, all the nails are removed out of the wall, took all the baseboards out of the room. Next step, so we want this to be perfect. And the problem is, as I mentioned, we're going to have to lower the baseboards about 1/4 of an inch to get them tight against the new floors. What that's going to do though is where the paint was and where the caulk was, there's a line here. So we're going to have to remove the caulk, and then it's going to be even more complicated. So let me show you that. So what I use is another new tool. This is basically a putty knife, and we're going to use this more later, but I'll use this just to go along the edge, get underneath the caulk line, remove the caulk from the wall, and you'll see it's going to leave a gap where there's raw drywall and then paint, and there's a little notch here. So we're going to go all the way around and remove all the caulk, and then we'll be back and I'll show you next step to making this perfect, which is simple. Just make it perfect. Hey everybody, so I'm back. Removed all of the caulk. Got a next step is to, this is a little weird, but there's a little bit of ridge here where the paint ends. The old paint was there, then there's bare drywall and the caulk that I removed. So there's no way if I just paint over that, you're not going to see it. So what I need to do is sand this down, and then I'm going to fill in the gaps with joint compound. So first things first, I get a sheet of this 60 grit, really rough sandpaper. Comes in a full sheet, you know, like this. So you fold it in half again, and then you get this square, and then you put it into your sander like this. Let's pop this in. If you guys haven't used these before, I'll just give you a quick intro to how these vibrating sanders work. Pop it in like that. Lock this side. Pop this side in. Lock in like this. See that? And then, oop, that scared me a little bit. Then what I'm going to do is, because it's so rough, rub it out here and get this to smooth down. Make sure you close the doors, dust's going to go everywhere. So that basically takes the ridge off. Now, next step is to put the joint compound on there. So let me do this all the way around the outside, then I'll come back and I'll show you the joint compound. Okay, I'm back. Room's a little dusty, I'm not sure if you can tell, but now it's time to try and fix the walls. So I sanded off all the shavings, made it as smooth as I could. So like I said, I'm starting here with the worst spot. Just so you can see how I'm going to fix this. So I'm going to take some of this joint compound, wallboard joint compound, and I'm going to apply that, fix the hole, and also put a thin little layer of it on the top of this ridge here to make it nice and smooth. So I'm just going to dip some of this out, put it here in this hole, smooth it over, boom. That's it. Then just kind of go along. If you're really good, you can do a little bit more pressure on the top and less on the bottom, so it makes it a little bit taller in the middle, flattens it out on the top along the wall, and then when you go to sand it, it'll be a nice smooth layer going down. So that's it. I'm just going to go all the way around the room and give it a nice little layer like that to take off this ridge. And then it's going to have to dry overnight, and then I'll come back in the morning, I'll sand that smooth, and it'll be ready to paint. So that's it, joint compound. Catch you in the next step. Okay, everybody, it's the next day. The wall board joint compound has been applied all the way around the room. It is dry. Next step is sanding, so I got some paint and finish sanding paper, which is a 120 grit. I put it on here, again for safety. Put my mask on because this is super dusty. Put a towel under the door because it goes everywhere and out in the hallway, which is a mess. You don't have to clean more rooms than you have to. So now it's just gonna be a matter of being careful to get it smooth, but not so it comes off really fast with the sander, so don't take so much off that you're back to the problem you had before where there's the line there from the paint. So let's do a little bit of this. Okay, so that's pretty much it. It's smooth at this point, and that's all I have to do. Go all around the room will be full of dust, and obviously I don't have to worry about the bottom. It's going to be covered by the baseboard, so just get a smooth line at the top. All right, thanks everybody. Okay, walls are all sanded. Time to introduce another tool, which is shop vac, or this is actually Craftsman vacuum, but I had one, it ran out, it died, so I got a new one. It's like $8, super valuable. There's gonna be a lot of vacuuming involved in this. I picked up all the big stuff, but now I need to do some vacuuming. And also the next step is gonna be remove the staples. So there's a couple hundred staples in the floor from the carpet pad. So I just need one of those pliers, just pull them out, pretty simple. But because there's hundreds of them, it's gonna take a while. So next step, remove all the staples, start making the floor perfect, and do a bunch of vacuuming. But it's still dusty in here, so I'm gonna, of course, keep my N95 mask on, little hearing protection, do some Okay, so here's all the baseboards. I've brought them into a different room, used this pliers to rip out all the nails that were stuck in here. The other room's all shop vacked up, clean, ready to go. Next step is remove all the old caulk from these baseboards that I removed. So you can see all this gunky caulk stuff along here. So now it's just a simple matter of going along with this kind of putty knife. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Get all this old caulk off. So off the back, off the top, clean it up good, get it ready to go. We'll get it right down to the wood, so it's ready to paint. In breaking news, the wife just decided that we're actually going to install crown molding, and we're going to paint the trim a different color. So we're going to go kind of a green on here, I guess. So we'll see what happens. So next step is going to be paint all this and paint all the new crown molding in this cool new green color and get ready to start installing crown molding before we paint. So see you next time. We'll check in later. Bye. Alright, so this is fun. All the caulk is removed from the baseboards. The room's looking good, except it's full of dust. So basically me and the wife are taking a rag and just wiping down every square inch of this room, rinsing it off and getting it ready to, next step, paint all these trim boards and crown molding, and then we'll start installing it. So next time you see us, hopefully these trim boards will be painted. Actually, we gotta do the walls first, then install the trim boards. So first step, paint the trim boards, let them dry, then paint the walls, then install the trim boards. So it's gonna be a journey, so here we go. Okay, so walls are all washed. Next step is we're going to paint. So I was going to give you a few painting techniques, tips, and tricks I learned over doing this for a while. So this is a new system we got from Home Depot. It's got a pourer built in, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to pour some paint into here. And I'm going to pour some paint into here for my wife. Okay, got the paint out. couple little tips and tricks for painting. Rolling. I like to keep a wet edge when you're painting. So I start in one corner, kind of, and then keep going from here. So I got some on the roller. Then just do lots of W's when you're painting, and then just keep it going. Easy. Not too much, not too little. Works well. And then as you're brushing, keep brushing in the corners and all the edges. We're going to repaint everything here. We're going to repaint the trim a different color. We're going to put thicken the tops on to tape anything. Usually I tape everything. You'll see that later. So this is a very pretty color. We're going to just pour this on nice and thick and keep a wet edge, of course. And that's it. Then I'm just going to, as we go around, then I'll just keep working in my W's up to where I painted my edge. Boom, pretty simple this time. All right.
So we decided to stencil this room, or I decided to stencil this room, and I think this is the only part of the project that I have to do all by myself because I guess it's too complicated. So just a few tips for how to stencil. First, have a really smooth, clean wall. That will be very helpful. Number two, match your paint sheens. The glossier the paint, the harder it is to stencil because of paint bleed under the edge of your stencil. So probably the highest paint sheet you'd probably want to do is a satin or a eggshell. You can vary your paint sheens if you want. You would just put a flatter one on top of a shinier one instead of shiny on top of flat. I decided to go monochrome, kind of the same colors, color hues over color. So very, just very subtle. So I went with a very organic design. It's called Sprigs. It's from, I forget the name of the stencil company, but it's a big stencil company online. What I like about this stencil is it comes with the full giant stencil, but it also comes with a top starter stencil. So you don't have to cut your stencil. And so I've already gone ahead and I've done the whole top of this wall. And I've just repeated that over and over and over. And I'm using my wall as hopefully, my ceiling is hopefully a level line, and I'm going to go down from there. Thankfully this is very organic, so you won't notice if it's going a little bit crooked. So I've just come down here and I'm just going to show you how you do this. You just use painter's tape. There's a couple little spaces here that the design has been already put on the wall from the previous stenciling from down here. So you match these up here the best you can. You can buy a leveler that you attach, a real small thin leveler that you can attach to your stencil. They make them and sell them. If you're really, really concerned about it being absolutely perfect. Otherwise, you kind of just line it up, painter's tape it on. I do have a level up here. Just in the beginning, I was checking to see like, oh, am I going? It's fairly level. Don't tell my husband that it's unlevel. Now, here's the biggest trick. How to get paint on this stencil without having it go under the edges, and they call it seepage. So if you put the paint on too heavy, it goes under the edge of the stencil, and it seeps onto your wall, and you don't get a nice, crisp paint line. The problem, if you can do that if you get too much paint on your tool. Two ways to do this: foam roller or a stippling painting brush. A stippling painting brush would probably take you a month to do a room this size. So I think you got to go with a foam roller when you do a big space. So I have a foam roller, and I'm going to show you how to load your paint. I have this handy dandy little tray. You're just going to put a little bit of paint on this roller. Kind of distribute it. You kind of hear the tacky sound. It's almost a dry roller. Then when you think you kind of have some paint distributed on there, give it a couple of rolls on paper towel to get off the excess. Doesn't seem like a lot. It's not. We don't want it to seep. If it starts seeping, it gets under the edge, and then your stencil won't lay flat against the wall. And then that's another problem, because then you have to wash your stencil in the bathtub and all that kind of stuff, and that's very annoying. Then you simply roll. You don't want to press too hard. Now I'm going for a very solid, all filled in color. Some people kind of just do a quick brush over to make it less, less full, I guess, less solid. So I keep going until I can't see any wall color. You just don't want to press so hard that you get paint smushing under the edge. So you can see it's pretty quick. So, and there's our little one at the bottom that we want to make sure and get, because we're going to use that to line up next time. You also want to make sure when you tape your stencil on the wall, you have it as tight as you can. But notice that even though it's loose against the wall, the roller is going to push the stencil down against the wall. If you have one with big gaps or big holes, you might want to be careful, mindful of which way you run your roller so you don't accidentally lift the edge up. But this one's a pretty small design, so I don't really have to worry about it lifting up the edge. Okay, that looks like it's about all filled in. That was pretty simple. Okay, and then you simply set this down. You simply remove it from the wall. Voila, there you go. And it doesn't look like we have any drips or paint runs or anything like that, so we don't have any seepage on the back side of the stencil, which is awesome because then we can keep reusing it. So then and because you're using such little paint, it's hardly wet at all, you can simply now just line it up again and do your next run. Now, the last part of this that's tricky is when you get to edges, you get to corners. When we get to that, and you're totally done using up your big stencil, then you can cut your big stencil to figure out how to fill in those gaps. That's it.
Okay. Well, as you can see, the room has changed dramatically. My wife finished the stenciling from her video. It looks amazing. She did a great job. So next it's on to trim. So we're painting the trim this kind of bluish, grayish color. My wife, of course, picks out all the colors, but
pretty straightforward. Tape everything first so you get nice straight lines. I'm brushing, keep it nice and thin. It's going to take 2 coats. And my wife's coming up behind me. She's got a foam roller. It's a new thing we're doing, so she's rolling all the kind of flat areas, and I'm cutting in with the brush. So we'll have to paint floorboards. We have to paint the crown molding and then install the crown molding. Paint all the doors, which are currently in the closet. So next time we come back, hopefully everything we painted, and I can show you installing the molding. Well, we gotta do the floor and then the molding, so push, push, push. Okay, so it's been a little while. We got a few updates I'm excited to tell you about. If I haven't mentioned it yet, my wife finished all the stenciling on the walls, which looks amazing. We did put in a ceiling fan, which looks really good. It's a Google activated one, so if I show you here on the wall switch, you can turn it on and off just by talking to it. Or you can push the button, so this is, turn the light on and off, obviously, and then there's 3 speeds to the ceiling fan, 1, 2, 3, turn it off. Or you can just talk to your home advice, Google, Amazon, whatever, and it'll do it, which is great. So, but the big thing now is we've painted all the trim, we've painted the floorboards, we've painted the crown molding, now we've prepped the floor. So we went around, took out all the staples and everything that was left over from all the work. This is a great time for you if you have squeaks. This is your one and only chance to go around, which I did. So I grabbed some decking screws, screwed them in, fixed all the squeaks. So I think that's it. Next step is to go prep the boards. So we've got lots of boxes of the luxury vinyl flooring. We're going to unbox several of those, mix them up so all the colors don't get put together if there's happens to be all the same color, the same box. So we'll get that all done, and then we'll come back and we'll show you how we get started actually installing the luxury flooring. So here's the stack of SmartCore flooring. We've unboxed several of the boxes. We put them all in this stack here. So we're going to start with this one, carry it into the bedroom, and start laying it out to show you how we install it. All right, let's get started. So first board in the room. The thing that's making this really easy, and that you may or may not choose to do, is that we removed all of this base molding. So because of that, we've got lots of room to deal with, because you think once we put this on here, the molding is going to come out at least this far. So we've got all this grace here and room to work with. So I need to start this board. We go the big lip side out. So we're going to snap into this as we go. First thing I have to do is get this board notched out so it can slide under here. So I'm just going to use the board as my guide. Here's about where I need to cut this, because it's going to be, you know, I want it all to go underneath the molding there. And then this one I need to cut this way. I want to get it all underneath the molding there, so I'm going to cut it about here. Then I'm going to use my square to level this out. You can see where my cuts have to go. I'll put the square here, measure this out to that line, square here, measure to this line. Okay, so now I know that's my notch I have to cut out, you see, so it's going to fit right in there. So next step is for me to go down to my jigsaw and show how I cut all my notches. So I'll give you that demo down in the garage. Okay, so I got my curve control Black & Decker jigsaw here, which I use for my kind of intricate cuts. I put a really fine tooth blade on here. It works super cool. I tried doing this with a hand saw. It was a mess. A lot of people use table saws, but I found this to work great. So you can see here's the line that I drew upstairs, and then I'm just going to do a quick cut along here. Super simple that way. That's it. All cut, ready to take back up into the bedroom and slide in place for our first board. All right, back up in the bedroom. Here's the notch, first board. Let's slide it in, see if it fits. So, yep, goes nicely underneath all the trim there. Trim there, slides in along the wall. Leaves us a little gap, so we're good to go with the first board. Okay, board number 2, here we go. We're gonna put it at an angle like this, and we're gonna hook it into place. So let's drop that down. It's pretty tight, but you'll see there's a little gap there. So you're gonna get this is how it's gonna go for the rest of the adventure. So we've got this pounding block, which is going to be an essential tool. It's got 2 different depths on it, each side. I'm going to take this smaller depth groove, lock it in the end of the board here, and then I'm going to pound this like that, which should close up that gap completely. So then that's it. So we're going to pound it a couple more times according to my nope. Oh, we got an uneven. It's always good to have a helper mate. And let's see. Oh, we do have a little bit of an issue here with it not being even. So again, you just put the pounder block, even them up, pound them up, and then they're nice and even. So we're going to use this pounding block a lot. My helper mate, aka my wife, approves. So we're just going to keep going. Great. So we kept that process going. Now we're at the other end, and this is, we're going to be doing a lot of this, but this is how we do our end pieces. Super simple. So I don't ever measure anything. I just use the boards themselves. So this is the way the board has to fit in. So in order to measure it, I'm just going to flip the board over. So this is the wrong way, so I'm going to measure it this way. Just going to leave myself room here so this can go under, because remember at the end there's going to be piece of floor molding that's going to go there. So this is where my line has to be, giving myself a little bit of room here. Make it like that, draw my line. Use my cutting knife here, utility knife, push pretty hard and pull. And once it's scored, it's just a matter of flipping it over, holding your hand and snapping it. Then this should be the right size, so it is. So now we're gonna put this thing in the groove like that, like I showed you before. Flip it down. This would be an absolute nightmare if you had the floor molding on there, which we did in the first room. We were trying to bend it and get it in there and stuff, so it's much easier with the molding off. Then we're gonna use the block to tap it nice and even here. So let's tap this. Now it's pretty even. Now there's one more tool I'm gonna show you, which is this nice pounding bar. It's got felt on the back so you don't damage it. Slide that in there. Then use your hammer. Hit that. Pulls that groove nice and tight. And that's it. Row number 1 done. We just got the rest of the room to go. We'll stop in periodically and give you some updates when we come to some tricky parts. Well, that didn't take long to find another interesting part. My helper mate said that I should go ahead and show you that all you do is take the board that we just drew the line on and cut there, just bring it over to the next row, and that's how you start the next row. So we're just gonna pop this in, lay it down, same idea, pound it tight, and keep moving.
So sometimes when you're seaming these edges together, they don't line up perfectly right. So when somebody's pounding from one end of the plank, I kind of hold this one up a little bit on an angle as you pound from the other end of the plank. And as you pound, I just kind of hold my hands like this and I kind of ease it into place. And then once the other person has pounded all the way down and tight, I just yell, stop. So do this while our camera just sits here on the floor. So you can just see, it makes the joints just go a little bit together a little bit more easily. Sometimes they want to buckle. So here we go. Stop. All right, and let's see. Look at that. We have a perfect seam. And now we have this seam here, and that looks pretty good, but we give it one extra little pound with the pounding block just to firm it up. Oop. Oops. And then, because sometimes you'll see that there's just a little gap in between here, and when you pound it, the gap goes away. So I just go along, do a couple pounds, and I always make sure that right here where we just did the seam, I always make sure that I lay my pounding block over the seam, because in that way it keeps the boards, and give it a pound, it keeps the boards perfectly flush together so you don't start getting gaps. There you go, perfectly flush. That's my tip.
Okay, so that wasn't too bad. If you look around, you'll see the floor is complete. A little echoey in here now with the wood floor, but now that the floor is complete, the next step is we're going to try to put the floor molding back on, the kick plate. One thing I like to do is take advantage of the installers before us who knew where the studs were and where to attach it. So I take blue painter's tape and I look for the holes, the previous holes where I took them out, and then I mark that on the back side. It's going to be every 16 inches on these long ones. So I just go all the way down, mark all these holes, so that's how we'll know where to nail this into the wall and hit a stud. It's a little bit trickier on new ones. I had to replace one, if you remember, because I broke it on the way out. So this one I'm going to have to find the studs myself with a stud finder. You'll see that in a bit. So let's go ahead, finish putting all the blue tape on, and then we'll get out the nail gun and we'll start installing the floor molding.
So we have all the baseboards marked for the studs, and it's time to use this nail gun, which is pretty exciting. We did have to like bend our baseboards back in, push them tight to the wall, and then we use this little hammer, this little block, to pound them down flat to get no gap against the floor. The reason we removed the baseboards is for two reasons. One, it was easier to put the flooring down with no baseboards, but secondly, if you don't remove your baseboards, then you just run your flooring up to it, and then you have to install quarter round, which is a whole nother, woodworking nightmare. I think it's a neater option just to drop the baseboards down and put them tight against the floor. My husband might say that creates a little bit more work for him, but I think it ends up being a lot neater. So, time to install the baseboards. I push my foot against him to make sure it's nice and tight against the wall, and then that's it. You're probably supposed to wear safety goggles, but yeah, you should probably wear safety goggles. And that's it.
Okay, floor molding is done. We've left the blue tape on it from where the studs were. Then we use that as a guide to go up the wall and measure where the studs are going up the wall. So that gives us indication where the nails have to go. Then we also grabbed our stud finder, went around on the ceiling, and found all the locations where the ceiling studs were. So that's helped us to figure out where our nails have to go when we put in the crown molding. Next is we're installing the crown molding. We got the corner done already, and now I'm going to show you how we're going to do the next piece. So I went ahead and measured how long this piece of crown molding has to be. Then I'm going to come down here, and the angles are what gets really tricky. So I've got to do this fancy part goes down, and then it's going to have to come in at this angle. So I always kind of start out helping myself out what angle that has to go. And then I also think about, well, which way does the cut have to go down on the saw? So it's got to come this way so the boards can meet up that way. So I got to go down to my saw, cut this kind of angle with this kind of angle, and also make it the right length so it splices into my my cut down there. So let's go down to the saw and see how this is going to happen. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be the most controversial part of probably the whole room install, which is how to do crown molding. So I've watched a lot of videos on how to do it. A lot of people create a jig and then they put it on their saw to create it. I tried that. Some people say you have to hold it at an angle like this to do your cuts. I tried that, and actually what I found is that the easiest way for me is just to use the markings on the saw. So if you come over here and look at the saw, you'll see it built into every one of these hacksaws. There's going to be a little line here which tells you that's kind of the crown molding line for the angle. And then down here there's going to be also a groove at 31.6 for how to do the corner edge. So if you just follow these lines on the saw, it's going to show you how to do it. So I marked up there the angle that it has to go, which is like this. And then the angle for the outside, which is like that. So the saw right now is set up to cut the angle. I just lined it up here as straight as I can, get everything right, and then hack it down. So this is going to cut this. Try to get it as straight as I can. Okay, so that's going to be my corner piece. And then I measured it so it has to be 70, which means, where's my tape measure? Here. So I'm going to measure this out 70. Let's get my pencil. Here we go. 70 to the edge. But I have to make the angle go out. So it's 70 here with the angle going out the same as that angle. So I can keep the saw like that. So it's right here. Okay. So now let's go ahead and cut this. Let's change the saw to straight because it's got to line up with the other angle here. Here's my line at 70. Right there. Just thinking this through. Okay, and it's upside down, so I think we're good to go right here. Let's give it a shot and we'll go check it upstairs. Okay, let's go check it out, see if it fits. Okay, so we're making our way around the ceiling. Crown molding is going in pretty well. Got the saw all set up downstairs. I'm making the angles as I mark them, and I'm also cutting the other edge. But now what we do generally when we get to a corner is my builder mate Beth and I, we just get the corners lined up pretty close, and then we start twisting them back and forth. So you see as you twist, corners get closer and closer. A little twisting as you get to the corners, bring out the nail gun, and then just start popping them in. We're going to consider an executive decision in this room. I'll show you later about not caulking. So I can show you another room we did where we did caulk, and you can see how that looked. We're pretty happy at the moment with the way the floorboards and the crown molding is looking without caulk on the edges. Of course, we'll go around and caulk the seams in the corners and where the pieces meet. But we may be happier with the little gap left underneath than we would be with having to caulk and then repaint a straight line. So we'll let you know as we get toward the end, but so far we're pretty pleased with the way this is looking without caulk. So that's it. We're just going to keep going. We'll make our way all the way around, and then we'll be done with the crown molding. It'll be time to start filling it in.
So we're just, we have all the crown molding up, we put on our last piece, and we don't have all the nails and all the studs, so, because we just kind of tacked it in certain areas while we were lining it up. So now we're going around and we're just shooting nails in and pressing it tight against the wall, and then shooting our nails into the studs as we go. So it's just that simple. Except my nail gun is stuck around my new ladder. Okay, we'll go right here. That's it. All right, nice and tight.
Okay, so crown molding has been installed. It's been nailed in. Now we need to fix the corners. So I picked this corner. I've got this wood filler I'm going to use, and I'm just going to try to push quite a bit of it into the corner of the gap. As you can see what's happening here. I'm going to go along, push that in. And once I get it in good, you'll see it starts to smooth right out. So it covers any issues you had creating the corner that's not 100% perfect, which is very difficult when the walls and ceilings aren't straight. But you'll see by the time this gets done, it'll be completely invisible. And then I just take my putty knife, kind of smooth out the corners a little bit, like this. Put a nice sharp angle back on it, like that. And then once it dries, I'm going to come back, sand it just a touch. I'm also going to go around and get all of the holes, the tiny little holes that we created when we nailed with the nail gun. So just kind of fill these in like this. And again, I'll just touch these very quickly with sandpaper when I come back. But I'm just filling all these holes. So that's it up there. Same thing down here, all along the edges. You see I've already started, but these are already filled in. tape was there as a guide, but just put a little bit of this wood filler in there. Some people use caulk. I could show you another room. I tried caulk too, just to compare. Seems like works about the same. I've heard that the caulk shrinks a little bit and leaves a little divot, and wood filler doesn't, which is why I'm doing it, but I couldn't tell the difference. They both seem to work fine. And you can also see here the helper mate Beth spray painted the bed. It was black, so she put a nice gray spray on there. We did that outside. She brought that in, so I'm making progress. That's it. So up here in the corner of the crown molding and all the way along, as you see, I filled in all the little holes. So now I come back with the sandpaper and let's take a look, just kind of smooth it out. You'll see any issues you had with it not matching up perfectly, they're going to be fixed as soon as I sand this down. Completely smooth. So a little bit of wood filler and some caulk will fix anything. So I've done the same thing on the bottom. Put caulk in the corners. As you can see here, wood filler in all the holes along here, coming back through, just sanding these down so they're nice and smooth. Then I'll be ready for the final paint. Well, here it is. This is the final product. We're super proud of it. You can see the primary objective was to get the carpeting out and put in this new vinyl plank flooring, which is done. We reupholstered a chair, which my wife finished. This beautiful stenciling on the wall, crown molding up in the ceiling, and all the trim painted and the walls painted, and a new ceiling fan installed also.